Hey, Tom Rabbit! I hope you got this for your recording. Hey, YouTube out there. Tom Rabbit likes to record these. Hey, Tom Rabbit! Was anybody here the last couple of hours who remembers the name of that young woman who I was discussing the existence of God, and she accused me of affirming the consequence?
Some of a Z.
Anybody remember what her name was?
It's like Zany, something like it.
Maybe.
Zany, if something like ZE, something like, I don't know.
Yeah, because I want to remember.
What was her argument?
She said that I was committing the affirming the consequence fallacy, which I was not. Okay, she wasn't understanding the reasoning. I understand why she made that mistake. Yeah. Affirming the consequences is like, if it is raining outside, the street will be wet. The street is wet, therefore it is raining. That would be affirming the consequence. Because the second premise doesn't necessarily entail that it's raining. The wet street could be from some other source. So, but my line of reasoning didn't measure up to that, so it wasn't affirming the consequence. But I just want to remember her name so I could go over it with her again.
Well, if the argument is P then Q, Q therefore P.
Yeah, we have to be careful with modal logic because sometimes it cannot accurately represent the line of reasoning, especially if the line of reasoning is truncated. Okay. So, for example, if I said, if God reveals himself through a manifestation that necessarily entails his existence, then we can know that he exists. There is a manifestation that necessarily entails God. Therefore, we know God exists. That would not be affirming the consequence. Because the second premise necessarily entails what the first premise lays out. Okay? So if I said to you, let's see, what's a good example? If there's snow on the ground, then necessarily it is snowing outside. And then premise two, there is snow on the ground, therefore it's snowing. Well, the snow could have come from a truck that was delivering it, okay, to somewhere. Okay, but if the consequence necessarily points to the first premise, then it's not affirming the consequence. It's only when the consequence can be the result of some other source. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's just question begging then.
No, it's not question begging, not at all. So, for example, if I said to you, if it is raining outside and there is no other source of water, then we can know that it is raining. There's water on the road, therefore we know it's raining. That would not be affirming the consequence.
Well, if
we said if it is raining outside, the road will be wet, and then we say the road is wet, therefore it's raining, that would be affirming the consequence.
Well, I can see why you would say that because we know there are different reasons why the road could be wet, but the whole purpose of the fallacy is to keep the argument of truth preserving, which doesn't presuppose that we know all the possible reasons for the road being wet.
So when I say, if God decides to reveal himself through a manifestation that would necessarily entail his existence, then we can know he exists. There is a manifestation that necessarily entails his existence. Then the conclusion God exists is valid and sound.
Yeah, it's just modus ponens, right? P implies Q, P, therefore Q.
Because the manifestation necessarily entails God. It's not that the manifestation might be explained by God, but it could be explained by something else. That's why she made the mistake of saying that I was affirming the consequence.
Yeah, I would have to see the argument again, because the P then Q, Q, P is.
I just said it to you, okay? If God decides to reveal himself through a manifestation that necessarily entails him, then we can know that God exists. There is a manifestation that necessarily entails God, therefore we know God exists.
Yeah, so I think P2 is just begging because it entails the conclusion.
No, it does not. It is not asserting that God exists. It simply says the manifest. No, it does not. It doesn't assert that God exists. It simply says the manifestation entails God. It implies God exclusively. So it's not begging the question.
All right, I'm gonna have to look at it again. Can you go over it?
Yeah, I said if God decides to manifest himself in a way where the manifestation necessarily entails him, or necessarily and exclusively implies him, then we can know God exists. There is a manifestation that necessarily implies God exclusively, therefore we can know God exists. The manifestation that necessarily entails God is not asserting that God exists. It just simply says the manifestation entails God.
Yeah, but how could there be a manifestation of God if God didn't exist?
That's not the issue. That doesn't ruin the form of the argument.
Yeah, I'm not totally sure. It sounds like
if there is a manifestation, if God decides to reveal himself through a manifestation, and the manifestation necessarily implies God, it necessarily implies God, then we can know God exists. There is a manifestation that implies God, therefore God exists. The second premise does not assert the existence of God. It simply just says the manifestation entails that.
Yeah, so I mean, if you can just determine God from P2, it's trivial, right? It's just question begging.
It's not trivial. It's not question based.
This
is true of every deductive argument.
Yeah, you know what's amazing? It blows my mind how either incompetent or dishonest people are. All P2 is saying is that there is a manifestation that necessarily entails or implies God. That's all. Yeah. It's not question begging. Okay, saying God exists is not the same proposition as saying that there's a manifestation that implies God.
You just said it did.
Well, okay, you know what? Fuck off. Get out of here. You know what? This is what I can't stand is some of these philosophical types. They're so fucking dishonest. They're like that Martin Short character who was the lawyer for the tobacco company. I didn't say that. You said that. They simply don't care. Get out of here or I'll ban your sorry little ass.
Don't ban me.
No, not you. To say that there's a manifestation and that the manifestation necessarily implies God, right, is not the same thing as saying God exists. God exists.
I assume that he meant something like that's going to be the controversial premise, right? Like someone who doesn't believe that God exists is either going to
think... That's fine. Yeah. Okay, I can understand that. Yeah, I know. But you see, this is the favorite thing of sophists to do is just say, they just throw out, oh, you're just begging the question. You're begging the question. They do this all the time. And it's
what was the name of that
annoying.
Before? What was the name of it?
Affirming the consequence.
Affirming the consequent or quence, excuse me.
Yeah.
Okay. So if it's raining outside, the street will be wet. The street is wet, therefore it's raining outside. Now, you can evade that by defining that the street is wet, that there's no other water source. Okay? And then you avoid it or avoid the problem. It's just when there's another option for the street being wet. If the only option for the street being wet is rain, then you're not guilty of the fallacy.
Right. Now, when you say there's no other water source, you mean no other water source present at the time. because there may have been water sources.
Yeah, that's no. What we're saying is that the water on the street could not have been from any other source. Okay.
Right. So if there was a flood, that just went through recently, and there's water on the street, you can't say, oh, that was created by the rain because it was created by the flood. Understood.
No, we can just simply say, if it is raining outside, the street will be wet. And then
what if there's two water sources that are present at the same
what
time?
I'm saying, look, you can avoid the fallacy is when you, I'm trying to think how to word this because I'm not trained in modal logic. It's only a fallacy is if the water can have another source. Okay.
Okay.
Right.
So you could conjoin some other premises there to try to make it like.
I would be wording it better,
no.
but I'm very tired. Okay.
So if there's two water sources present at the same time, you can't conclude that it was
if we say if it is raining outside, the street will be wet. Okay. The street is wet. But if in the reasoning or the argument you rule out any other source of water, then you're not guilty of the fallacy.
Understood.
Okay. It's only when the street being wet could be wet for another reason other than it's raining outside.
So can I give you a little bit of a question? So let's say it's raining, right? But every time it rains in this particular
not you
area,
again. Oh, go ahead.
and it creates a flood. And the street is wet. Is that because of the flood, or is it because of the rain?
Well, it would be indirectly from the rain.
Okay.
It wouldn't be directly from the rain. It would be indirect.
Thank you for answering my question.
You could say, if it is raining out, the street will be wet. The street is wet, and there is no other possible water source other than rain. Therefore, it's raining. Okay? It's just sometimes when people, and I'm sure I'm guilty of this too, express their reasoning in an inarticulate way, or they don't give enough specificity. And so because there's not enough specificity there, that it appears that they're committing, affirming the consequence. So like that guy when I said in premise 2, that there is a manifestation that necessarily implies the existence of God. And then I said, therefore we can know God exists. He says that begs the question, but P2 is not the same thing as the conclusion. It's just that there's a manifestation, and the manifestation entails or exclusively implies God. Yeah, sometimes these fallacies can be tricky, and sometimes people mistake them. There was a situation with Matt Slick and Alex Malpass, where he nailed Matt Slick on one line of reasoning about the laws of logic, okay, and Alex being proficient in modal logic, where Matt said either the laws of logic can be accounted for by God or not God, right? And then he said, I think P2 was like the laws of logic cannot ground the laws of logic, right? Therefore, God grounds the laws of logic. And Alex Malpass said, well, you're saying not God, right? Which was the same thing as God. But that's not what Matt Slick meant. Okay, so when he said not God, he wasn't negating not God. He was saying whatever not God is cannot ground the laws of logic. You understand? Does everybody understand?
Yeah.
So there are two semantic ways of understanding not God. Okay. The first one is what Alex was using. That the first not was simply negating the existence of not God. But that is not how Matt Slick was using it. He was saying that whatever constitutes not God cannot ground the laws of logic. So he wasn't making the modal logic error that he was accusing Matt Slick of. He was simply capitalizing on the reducing it into a modal logic form, which it could have meant. It was a hasty generalization because not God can mean two different things.
Depending on the grammar. Yeah.
So when you only look at it as a mathematical equation, well, grammatical constructions are not the same as simple mathematical equations.
I think ask yourself has that problem too. I don't know if you've had a conversation with him before.
Oh my gosh. You know what's sad is because he's a smart young man, and
He's
he's well
interested in
studied.
logic.
What's that?
And he's interested in logic too. I think
Yes. And I like that. And he's very articulate when it comes to expressing, modal logic, but he's devious and he's deceptive. How do I know? Because I've engaged him on many occasions. Okay. And this is what certain philosophical types do. Is when they don't actually have an intellectual case, they will use their learning in philosophy and logic to verbally bamboozle their opponents. And they know they're doing it.
The next day.
So when Matt Slick said not God, he wasn't using that to be the negation of the not God world equal, meaning God. He was saying the not God world can't account for the laws of logic. Okay? So not God can mean two different things.
That's not true. Not God is God. It's the same thing. They're equivalent.
You're an idiot. You're a complete idiot. The way Matt was phrasing it when he said not God, it was a truncated statement to mean that the not God world cannot account for the laws of logic. That's what he was referring to. So when he said not God, it was a truncated expression that the not God meant that the not God world could not account for the laws of logic.
Well, if you want to say that, then what he's really saying is not B, C, D, E, F, G, all the other worldviews, and then you'll fall into the problem.
You understand the difference between univocal and equivocal?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So not God in a response, if somebody is not being extremely precise, can be equivocal. It can mean more than one thing.
Okay, so if you want to say that it's the inductive horn of the argument, then you need to give some kind of
what he's saying is, look,
what?
No, but the point what we're discussing is how Alex Malpass either knowingly or inadvertently could not see the equivocal notion of that expression where somebody who doesn't have a PhD in philosophy could see it. What was Alex's excuse?
I guess I see what you're saying, but the not thing means what it means in logic. So if you want to say that it actually means all the other worldviews that aren't Christian
Matt was not trying to argue with in terms of modal logic, okay, as though rationales are expressed as mathematical formulas, okay. So Matt, what semantically he meant by not God meant not God cannot account for the laws of logic, not the negation of the existence of not God, which would be God.
Okay, then it wouldn't be a true dichotomy if it's not the negation.
What wouldn't be a dichotomy? No, you're not understanding. Okay, you're going to have to go watch the video. Okay, and to see what Matt wrote. Okay,
so if you want to
hold on a second. I can't recall it precisely from memory, but the point is, Matt was contrasting the God world versus the not world God. Yep. God can account for the laws of logic. The not God cannot.
So you got to pick one or the other.
Listen to me. Hold on a second. Is the expression God can account for the laws of logic, right? And suppose we truncate it to God can. And then we have another expression that not God cannot. And suppose we truncate that into an imprecise way to not God, not God. Alex Malpass was capitalizing on the truncated, imprecise representation, which he was undermining something that Matt wasn't communicating. When Matt said not God, what he meant was the not God world cannot. Okay.
Okay, so if you want a true dichotomy, it's got to be A or not A, right?
You're not understanding. It was not negating the entity of not God. What it was negating was the capacity of not God to account for the laws of logic.
Okay, so that's fine. Then that's the inductive way, right? So you're going to have to show a common property between all the not God worlds, right? So you'll fall to the problem of induction. It can't be done logically.
No, sir. They all have a common property that everything universally exists with independence from God.
Okay, so that's just not God then. That's the same as A or not A.
Right, but the point. Wow, are you obtuse?
No, you got to pick one or the other. It's either A or not A.
Dude, I'm really beginning to suspect that you're a troll. Okay, and you know what's a good sign is when people start fast talking. Okay,
fast talking.
What was the central idea that Matt was getting across? Did you watch the video?
I don't know what video you're referring to.
Okay, so you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Well, I'm trying to speak and you're just interrupting me. So
no, but you're not familiar with Matt's. You're not familiar with Matt's original content, are you?
I didn't see the reason, but I know the argument.
Good. So good. No. What was the point Matt was trying to get across?
He was trying to say that only the God world could account for intelligibility. He's trying to give the tag argument and then rule out through logical necessity all the other.
And so what he said when he said not God, was that intending to be the negation of the existence of the not God world?
Yeah, if you want to say it's a true dichotomy, it has to be
wrong. Wow. You know what? You can fuck off because it's clear to me that you're just bickering and you're not even listening to me.
So I guess you can just mute me.
You're dishonest. Okay.
If you want to have actual conversation, we can, but that's fine. No problem.
I want. You know what? You're so full of shit. You're a troll. I'm trying to have a conversation with you, but you are bickering.
No, you keep talking over me. It's fine. I'll just go back to bed.
Yeah, hit the road, Jack.
Yeah, let me know when you want to have an actual conversation.
Stop with the bullshitting. I'm 60 years old, which I tell people all the time. I wasn't born yesterday. I know when somebody's trolling. Okay. See, when people are trolling, they start rapid talking. They start multiple times interrupting, which is what you were doing. Okay. You're not even familiar with Matt's original presentation. You didn't even listen to the interaction between Matt and Alec Malpass, but you're giving a commentary on it.
We're interrupted.
Okay. Oh, I want. You know what? You're so full of shit.